From Washington, this is VOA News. President Obama angered over gun bill defeat. U.S. authorities deny reports of an arrest in Boston Marathon bombings. I'm Ray Kugel reporting from Washington. President Obama angrily blamed a minority of senators and gun owners groups for the defeat of a bill that would require gun buyers to pass expanded background checks. White House correspondent Kent Klein reports.
The president, who's known for his cool demeanor, lashed out. He accused both Republicans and Democrats who voted against the bill of political cowardice.
There were no coherent arguments as to why we wouldn't do this. It came down to politics. The worry that that vocal minority of gun owners would come after them in future elections.
The president went on to blame the National Rifle Association and other gun owners groups of distorting the provisions of the legislation.
But instead of supporting this compromise, the gun lobby and its allies willfully lied about the bill.
54 of the 100 senators voted for the initiative, but it fell short of the 60 votes needed for passage. Kent Klein, VOA News, the White House.
The legislation was a bipartisan compromise intended to keep guns out of the hands of convicted criminals and the mentally ill. Federal law enforcement officials report an arrest in the investigation of recent mailings of poisoned letters to President Obama and Republican U.S. Senator Roger Wicker of Mississippi. U.S. law enforcement officials say the letters initially tested positive for the poison ricin and both postmarked in Mississippi. The FBI says there's no evidence the letters are related to the bombing attacks at the Boston Marathon. Law enforcement agencies are denying widespread media reports that a suspect was arrested in Monday's deadly bombings at the Boston Marathon. The FBI, federal prosecutors, and Boston police have all denied the reports in which television networks cited investigators. Those investigators told news agencies that footage from a security camera showed a man carrying and then dropping a black bag near one of the twin explosions that killed 3 people and wounded 176 others at the finish line of the annual race. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is warning the West that it'll be paying a heavy price for what he calls its support of al-Qaeda militants fighting against his autocratic government. In a rare interview with state-run television, Mr. Assad said the consequences of alleged Western support for al-Qaeda will be felt, in his words, the heart of Europe and the United States. The White House responded to his remarks by saying Mr. Assad is willing to kill tens of thousands of his own people and to repress the legitimate aspirations of Syrians. Thousands of people lined the route of the funeral cortege in London for the former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Her flag-draped coffin was transported by horse-drawn gun carriage to St. Paul's Cathedral Wednesday, where world leaders and dignitaries from 170 countries waited. Henry Ridgwell has details.
On a grey morning, people came in their thousands to bid farewell, jostling on the sidewalks and hanging from office windows overlooking the route through the heart of London. Among the crowd were Joseph Bates and his family.
We've come to say goodbye to a great lady, a great leader.
In the days since Mrs. Thatcher's death, debate has raged over her legacy for Britain and for the world. Wednesday's crowds in London were mostly respectful, and fears of disruptive protests did not materialise. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
Mrs. Thatcher died last week at the age of 87. Taiwan is holding 5 days of large-scale military exercises meant to demonstrate its ability to defend itself against any attack from mainland China. The annual drill in the Taiwan Strait includes a test of the Thunderbolt 2000 multiple rocket launch system designed to take out enemy ships before they reach shore. A test flight of U.S. commercial rocket designed to resupply the International Space Station was scrubbed over technical problems. The Virginia-based company Orbital Sciences Corporation had planned to launch its Antares rocket from NASA's Wallops Flight Facility on Virginia's Atlantic Shore Wednesday, but the launch was aborted about 12 minutes before planned liftoff. Secretary of State John Kerry says the United States has not decided whether to recognize Nicolas Maduro as Venezuela's new president. Last Sunday's narrow election victory by Mr. Maduro, the chosen successor of the late socialist President Hugo Chavez, is being rejected by his rival Enrique Capriles. The opposition alleges voting irregularities and calling for a recount. The National Election Board says there will be no recount. I'm Ray Kugel, VOA News. More on the internet at voanews.com.